Okay, let's dive into this. When we think of artificial intelligence, right, we usually picture something kind of weightless, a helpful chatbot, a generated image, or just some software living somewhere up in the cloud. But here's the thing. The reality is that AI has a massive physical footprint. Behind every single digital interaction is a sprawling network of physical infrastructure. So today's explainer is going to explore the hidden civic frameworks that actually govern that infrastructure. We're going to answer a really critical question. Who exactly decides whether AI is using our physical resources responsibly? Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the physical cost of AI, contrast measurement versus regulation, map out who oversees the resources, explore the local approval paradox, uncover the oversight gap, and finally, look at protecting the public interest.
So, is AI truly invisible? It's a super common misconception that AI is just magic happening out in the digital ether. But it's not. Behind every prompt and every automated task is a massive physical and economic system. We are talking about sprawling data centers, specialized computer chips, miles and miles of transmission lines, and the very real human and natural resources required to keep the whole shebang running day and night.
Section 1, the physical cost of AI.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer scale of this energy demand. In 2023, U.S. data centers consumed an estimated 176 terawatt-hours of electricity. To put that into perspective for you, that is roughly 4.4% of all national electricity use. That's enough to power millions of homes, and projections from the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory suggest this could surge to anywhere between 325 and 580 terawatt-hours by 2028. That could potentially make up 12% of the country's total electricity consumption. No way around it, that's huge.
And honestly, electricity is just the beginning. The physical footprint of AI impacts communities in very tangible ways. Take water, for instance. In 2023, data centers in Virginia alone used an estimated 2.1 billion gallons of water just for cooling. Then there's the land required for these massive facilities, the emissions from diesel backup generators, and even the persistent low-frequency hum of cooling systems. In some Virginia facilities, that hum hovered around 40 to 59 decibels, creating this constant, inescapable drone for nearby residents.
Section 2. Measurement is not regulation.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because here is a crucial distinction. On one side, we have measurement. Incredible organizations like the Berkeley Lab or the International Energy Agency do absolutely vital work estimating energy use and forecasting future demand. But they do not have the regulatory authority to actually approve individual data center projects. On the other side is regulation, the actual legal approval and permitting of a facility. So measuring the scale of the problem is completely separate from actually regulating.
Section 3. Who oversees the resources?
But who decides? Just look at this complex web of electricity oversight. No single entity holds all the cards here. Your local utility evaluates if the power and infrastructure are technically available. The State Public Utility Commission, or PUC, steps in to review retail rates and make sure regular customers aren't unfairly burdened. Meanwhile, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, handles interstate transmission and wholesale markets. And finally, NERC oversees the mandatory reliability standards for the bulk power system. It's like a giant puzzle. It is a deeply layered, highly fragmented system.
And we see that exact same fragmentation when it comes to water and emissions. A local water utility might ensure there's enough pressure in the pipes, while a state agency sets withdrawal limits for aquifers. Over on the environmental side, the EPA provides the national framework for clean air and water, but the actual permits for things like backup diesel generators, those are usually issued and enforced by state or local air agencies.
Because of this fragmented permitting, a facility's true impact can easily be obscured. A data center might look incredibly clean locally because its direct emissions, the ones produced right on site, are very low. But if we look at indirect emissions, that same data center might be driving up fossil fuel consumption at distant power plants that are just running overtime to supply it with electricity.
Section 4. The local approval paradox. Here, we run into a fascinating conflict of interest. Local governments, like city councils and zoning boards, are tasked with being the strict regulators enforcing noise, traffic, and land use rules. But simultaneously, they act as promoters. Data centers bring promises of massive tax revenue, lucrative land sales, and construction jobs. So the local government is simultaneously playing the strict referee and the enthusiastic team owner.
Section 5. The oversight gap.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core problem, the fragmented reality.
A developer gets an air permit here, a water agreement there, power approval over here, and zoning down the street. Every individual box gets checked off, for sure, but no single agency is evaluating the total, cumulative burden on the region.
Which leads us to the ultimate, largely unanswered question posed by our source material. Does the combined project actually serve the public interest after all the costs and benefits are considered together? When the construction is finished and the facility is just humming away running AI models, is the community actually better off?
So the crucial point is understanding the fundamental difference between a compliance test and a public interest test. Regulators today mostly run a compliance test. Does this project technically meet existing rules? Is the water legally available? But a public interest test goes so much deeper. It asks who truly benefits, who ultimately pays for the new power lines, and what the long-term cumulative impacts are on the climate and the community.
Section 6. Protecting the public interest.
The source material outlines several clear policy improvements. First, we absolutely need independent third-party reviews of project impacts, and those should be chosen by regulators, not developers. We need cumulative impact analyses that look at all the data centers in a region, not just one at a time. Crucially, we need ratepayer protections so everyday households aren't stuck paying the bill for power grid upgrades required by massive data centers. And finally, communities need binding enforceable resource limits and annual public reporting on the actual water and power being consumed.
Now, if a data center is ever proposed in your community, here is a rapid-fire sequence of critical questions you should be asking your local officials. Exactly how much water and electricity will this facility use? Who is paying for the necessary infrastructure upgrades? Who actually funded the environmental and economic impact studies being presented? And what specific, enforceable community benefits are guaranteed after construction ends?
Ultimately, while AI models and the data centers that house them are privately owned, their impacts on our water, our power grids, our land, and our air are entirely public. Because of that, the public deserves total transparency, independent verification, and a meaningful voice in the process. You know, the question isn't just whether the power and water are available, it's whether they should be used this way, and who is ultimately accountable if the projections are wrong. Measure the resources, follow the incentives, question the assumptions, and protect the public interest. Well, that's it for this explainer. Keep asking the tough questions, and we'll see you next time.